Hello, church. So here's our devotional for Wednesday, May 20th. We are back with our next cheerful, uplifting section of Ecclesiastes. We're following the break that the NIV uses from Towner. So we're going to be looking at verses 12 to 23 today, and then we'll have a concluding portion before stepping into probably the most familiar part of Ecclesiastes, which is chapter 3. Some good portions of commentary. I'm actually reducing the amount, but we'll give you a little taste of the part that I'm leaving out. So we'll start with our NRSV, and this begins at verse 12 of chapter 2. So I turn to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the one do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. Then I saw that wisdom excels folly as light excels darkness. The wise have eyes in their head, but fools walk in darkness. Yet I perceive that the same fate befalls all of them. Then I said to myself, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said to myself that this also is vanity. For there is no enduring remembrance of the wise or of fools, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. How can the wise die just like fools? So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and a chasing after wind. I hated all my toil in which I had toiled under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to those who come after me. And who knows whether they will be wise or foolish? Yet they will be master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. So I turned and gave my heart up to despair concerning all the toil of my neighbors under the sun, because sometimes one who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave all to be enjoyed by another who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. What do mortals get from all the toil and strain with which they toil under the sun? For all their days are full of pain, and their work is a vexation. Even at night, their minds do not rest. This also is vanity. A little bit of commentary and then a little bit of reflection. So we're talking in this section about fate, and part of what Towner is going to be uplifting is that the thought of an afterlife other than just death is fairly late in Jewish thought in terms of the Hebrew scriptures, what we have as the Old Testament, and he'll get into some specifics on that. But what he's struggling with in this particular section is the common fate of all humanity. And so a little bit of commentary on that front. Running through this section and marked by numerous uses of the slogans with which Kohelet structures his meditations on meaning and absurdity is the underlying theme of the common fatal destiny of all things. That common destiny, hateful death, keeps the rich entrepreneur awake at night, seething in anger at the prospect that some unknown knave may live to enjoy the windfall of his inheritance. Although wisdom must be valued, it does not bring peace and happiness to one who contemplates this fate. In fact, it is not even attainable. And from this portion of reflection, Towner entitles, A Painful Cry, I Hate Life. For Kohelet, who had no notion of a meaningful afterlife, death leveled the distinction between the wise and the foolish. Are you wise? So what? Why bother? It will not make any difference at all in the end. Death relativizes, even trivializes wisdom. Until resurrection makes its first appearances late in the Old Testament period, and he references Isaiah 26 and Daniel 12, the hope of ancient Israelites for any transcendence of death lay only in enduring remembrance. The individual life will be extinguished at death, but the memory of good deeds and wise words would linger on. Now, however, the utter realist, no detached observer here, but an anguished victim, arises to say what everyone knew anyway, that memory is short, and the monuments raised by wise people and fools alike do not long endure. Fate is not kind to some and hard on others. It is hard on everyone. Was he wrong? Here, the realism of the teacher emerges to clear away any self-delusion about our common destiny of death. Modern Jews and Christians usually deny his premise of no afterlife, but as far as what we leave behind, the man was absolutely correct. All of us have to say, I must leave it to those who will come after me, and who knows whether they will be wise or foolish. So connecting that whole sense of legacy and what's going to be happening. So bitter is this pill of absurdity that the teacher claims that he hates life altogether in verse 17. The cry is the most extreme in the entire book, yet it is not a choice of death over life. In fact, the claim is hard to accept at all, for this central character of the book has a mind so lively and zeal, so apt to challenge every orthodoxy that mere contact with him quickens the spirit of his readers. Even in his extremity, Kohelet continues to prefer light over darkness, which means life lived without self-deception, without despair, life lived in full questioning awareness. Little side note that I wasn't planning on doing until I hit that particular part. There was a psychologist and author who wrote I think won the Nobel Prize like back in the 70s, named Becker, who wrote a book on the denial of death and looking at that as a motivation for a lot of our activities and decisions and choices as humans. What Becker is uplifting is that as we start to accept death and our own mortality, that we're actually able to live more fully because we are not living in fear. I had said yesterday that I was going to repeat verse 11 for the message, it partly because he picks up on that emphasis in the last section for Towner. So Peterson begins this portion entitled, I Hate Life. Then I took a good look at everything I'd done, looked at the sweat and hard work, but when I looked, I saw nothing but smoke and spitting into the wind. There was nothing to any of it, nothing. And then I took a hard look at what's smart and what's stupid. Sorry. We don't encounter the word stupid a whole lot when I'm normally reading scripture. What's left to do after you've been king? That's a hard act to follow. You just do what you can, and that's it. But I did see that it's better to be smart than stupid, just as light is better than darkness. Even so, though the smart ones see where they're going and the stupid ones grope in the dark, they're all the same in the end. One fate for all, and that's it. When I realized that my fate's the same as the fool's, I had to ask myself, so why bother being wise? It's all smoke, nothing but smoke. The smart and the stupid both disappear out of sight. In a day or two, they're both forgotten. Wow. Yes, both the smart and the stupid die, and that's it. I hate life. As far as I can see, what happens on earth is a bad business. It's smoke and spitting into the wind. And I hated everything I'd accomplished and accumulated on the earth. I can't take it with me. No, I have to leave it to whoever comes after me, whether they're worthy or worthless, and who's to tell. They'll take over the earthly results of my intense thinking and hard work. Smoke. I need to turn down. Sorry a minute. That's when I called it quits. gave up on everything that could be hoped for on this earth. What's the point of working your fingers to the bone if you hand over what you work for to someone who never lifted a finger for it? Smoke. That's what it is. A bad business from start to finish. So what do you get from a life of hard labor? Pain, and grief from dawn to dusk. Never a decent night's rest. Nothing but smoke. Delightful. This is a good point for me to share or remind, because I've mentioned before that I refer to Ecclesiastes as one of the most depressing books of the Bible. A few years ago, we were doing a clergy convocation and had in Reverend Dr. Sarah Lund, who at that point had written a book called Blessed Are the Crazy, and using that beatitude formula to talk about the importance of mental health and destigmatizing some of those conversations in church. One of the questions she asked the group was, so where do you see depression or mental illness in the Bible? And we talked about several things, but my blurted out answer was the entire book of Ecclesiastes. So, all right. I'm clearly having more fun with this than I was anticipating. Thank you for your grace in the midst of me laughing and just, going with that, because that's my primary defense mechanism, and we'll keep rolling right along. We'll finish up Ecclesiastes tomorrow, and we will see you then. Have a great day.